That's me. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back for the last technical session in this big room, in this amazing venue. We're going to have, for the next 75 minutes or so, quite a rapid-fire view of what's coming in the future from a technology perspective. We can't predict football results or anything like that, but we can tell you what's coming a little bit in the future in terms of the ArcGIS technology. So it's quite rapid-fire. Bear with us, it's a bit of a rapid ride, but we've got some great information we want to share with you, which we hope you'll find interesting but also exciting. So as we heard yesterday, ArcGIS is a comprehensive geospatial system with components and experiences for various communities: mapping, analytics, developers, imagery, and so on. For the next 75 minutes, we're aiming to give you a view of this future of this system with previews and plans for many of the core applications, as well as some new ones or ones that are less well known. The first part of this is I want to pass across to one of our colleagues from Esri, someone who's been to this conference in the past, Kelly Gerald-Wilcox, who presented on ArcGIS Online with us at NZEUC a few years ago. So we've asked her to come in and join us remotely and tell us a little bit about what's happening with ArcGIS Online over the next few releases.
Kia ora. Hello, everyone. It's Kelly Gerald-Wilcox calling in from British Columbia, Canada this year. And I'm really sad to not be in New Zealand with you all, but I'm happy to be sharing what we're working on for the road ahead for the rest of 2022 and then for 2023 and beyond. So I'm just going to go through this list of things that we're working on. And the first thing I do want to highlight is that we are changing the cadence of our releases for ArcGIS Online. So we're going from 4 yearly releases to 3 over the next year. So coming up in November, we're going to have 1 release in early November, and then the next release is going to be in February. And then for 2023, as you can see here, we're going to have releases in February, June, and October. This will let us get some additional work done before we release it, and also reduce the amount of times that you'll be watching out for a release. It's feedback that we've heard, so we're excited to give this a try. We're also here to try it as a pilot, so if you have feedback on what our cadence is, feel free to reach out. So for 2022, so the November release, we have some really exciting things that we're working on. Again, it's still a little bit early in the release cycle, so things may change, but this is what we've got planned. So one thing I'm really excited for are item usage reports. And what this really is the ability to download how your item is being used over time. So views over days or over weeks to really better understand how each individual item is being used. We're also going to add some new administrative sharing privileges, which allow content managers to really better manage workflows where they need to share other users' content with the organization or with everyone. So this will be really helpful for people who have a publishing workflow and need to actually override the sharing privileges that the owners have. We're working on our security and compliance for FedRAMP moderate. This is going to have a lot more security controls and really will set a great baseline for the security with ArcGIS Online. You can read more about it at security.arcgis.com. Oh, sorry, it's trust.arcgis.com. Another thing to take a look at, I guess, in the upcoming release, and you'll be able to see this definitely in the map viewer, is an updated arcade editor experience. We've got some IntelliSense typing, better troubleshooting and debugging in the new editor. Also in the new map viewer, we're going to have some exciting things coming up. Analysis tools, I'm going a little out of order, but analysis tools are coming up. So they are going to be included in the map viewer. So really the first set of tools to really start to see full parity coming with map viewer. We're also going to be able to publish layers from a CSV or shapefile if you drag and drop them into the map viewer. So this was something that was available in Map Viewer Classic. We'll now be having it in Map Viewer. Another exciting part is it's going to be publishing feature layers. So you're really going to be able to use those layers that you do drag and drop that you do publish from the drag and drop experience. Also, a highly requested item that was voted on at user conference is showing and working with related records. We're going to see them in pop-ups at this release, and we'll continue to do more work with related records. We've got some new instant apps coming into the portfolio of instant apps. We're also working on an updated append workflow where you're going to be able to have a lot more flexibility with keeping that data up to date after it's already been published. Then in 2023 and beyond, we have item relationships. So understanding where your layers are being used within your organization and the larger system. We're going to be redoing the organization status page. So everywhere that you get information about what's being used in your organization, we're going to revamp that. We're going to continue to work on getting more reporting on items so you can really understand how your apps and layers are being used in the system. We're going to update status.arcgis.com to have a new modern look. We're going to be working on some advanced web editing workflows. So really keep an eye on kind of editing on the web. And then we're going to have an improved metadata editor that is consistent across the platform. So ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Enterprise, and ArcGIS Online. I hope you have a great rest of the conference and have a great day.
Cool, so a quick fire view of some of the features that are coming to ArcGIS Online later this year in November, as well as beyond there. I guess one that I'd like to point out was the item relationships one that she had in 2023. That's a really key one if you understand how a complex ArcGIS Online organization can be with lots of links between layers and web maps and so on. Be a great way to view and understand how those various entities are linked. She also mentioned analysis coming in the map viewer, and to tell us a little bit more about what that actually involves, I'm going to pass over to James. James.
Thank you, Scott. So yeah, as Kelly mentioned, a new and exciting capability coming to the map viewer, and definitely a highly requested feature, analysis tools. And we have a little bit of a sneak peek for you on the screen there. It's got a new look and feel. Obviously, in the new map viewer, there's a couple of new capabilities, things like analysis history. So like you would in Pro, where you can see all your geoprocessing tools, you can now access that in the map viewer, as well as being able to search for tool by tool. So that could be for feature analysis or raster analysis as well. Like Kelly mentioned, this is coming likely in the November release. This will be initially a subset of the tools available. And yeah, coming to that analysis history, like I mentioned, the geoprocessing tools are pretty similar to Pro. So everything you can do there, you'll be able to do. So things like reviewing the tool inputs, outputs, and any job messages or errors you might come across. Also being able to reopen and rerun those tools as well. And eventually, all of that will be saved to the web map as well. So anytime you come back to it, you're good to go again. And as I mentioned, it's only a subset in that initial release. In future releases, everything coming from the old map viewer will be coming to the new one. Things like raster functions, model builder, so chaining together geoprocessing tools. Same thing for raster functions as well. And also custom tools integrating with ArcGIS notebooks. Plus lots more. I hope you're excited for it. That's me for now.
Thanks, James. Thanks, James. So you can see there's some pretty comprehensive analysis functionality coming to online just through that browser in the short and longer term. The next thing we want to do an update on are ArcGIS Dashboards. We saw them earlier on at various points this conference. What's coming with these exciting dashboards that a lot of us use to view near real-time data? To tell us this, answer that question, I'm going to pass over to Ed.
Thanks for that, Scott. So as we've seen, dashboards are a very popular tool, and I like to think every year is the year of the dashboard, and the year coming is going to be no different. So to start with the follow feature, this was a functionality that was heavily used in Dashboards Classic. It wasn't offered when the new ArcGIS Dashboards came out, but not to fear, it's returning. The team are working on it, that's the official status, and it's very likely we'll see it in these new release stages of ArcGIS Online that Kelly covered earlier. Accessibility, something unfortunately we often don't think too much about until it's too late. It's really good with dashboards. They're including and making this front of mind with the products that you create. So there's going to be a completely updated authoring experience that takes this into account. And I think the key one here is keyboard navigation within dashboards. Fantastic if your mouse doesn't work, or for just general accessibility standards, meeting those. So keep an eye on that, because I think that's going to be a really exciting capability, interacting with the different elements that you're creating. The ability to reset. I'm sure there's many of you who have zoomed in on your dashboard, and people have come in and taken that number and run with it, and you've ended up in a whole lot of trouble because they've taken the wrong value. Well, not to fear, the reset button is going to be coming to dashboards. So it'll be at the bottom left-hand corner, and the ability to quickly reset it to the view that you want to have your audience reviewing your data on is going to be something that is coming up. So that will be next to where the download CSV button is, a personal favourite of mine. Improved map selection. So it's not ideal at the moment. When we're interacting with our map, we've got to click some very clunky tools up the top left corner. That's changing now. So the dashboard team are looking to include in the ability to do a very simple button versus lots of very complicated buttons within that map frame to allow you to really do those map-powered selections faster and easier. So it'll be the same as the charts and selectors, being able to just click on it and the rest of the elements in there will change. Search within list. So list has been one of those capabilities that people have certainly taken advantage of to the point of putting thousands of records in it and hoping that it loads. Well, I'm glad to say that long lists, even though they do slow dashboard performance, the new search capability is going to make it easier to include. So rather than your client side loading a whole lot of data and information, the ability to search within rows just to query specific capabilities is something that's fantastic. And then finally, mobile dashboards. This is something that's really excited. So having one dashboard and two layouts. So no need to now manage two items or two URLs, and removing the dependency on having that second application. So this is just an example, as you can see up here, of how that may look. So then finally, the charting library. So you'll see that quite often across the platform, the charting capability is a little bit different. Dashboards are looking to come on board with some of the other applications, so that should hopefully improve the quality, the performance, and some of the visualization options that you have available. There was more that I wasn't aware of, including Arcade Editor. So the ability to bring the arcade capabilities from the map viewer and bring it in to formatting some of your elements and some of the data that you're displaying, changing it with using Arcade, its new refreshed editing interface. So just a couple of examples of how that looks up on the screen here. So a bit better than just a small amount of a text box on the screen. Time series, there have been challenges, particularly with the massive data sets the GIS community seem to have here in New Zealand. Quite often you end up with pretty laggy dashboards. Coming soon is the ability to query back-end APIs rather than relying on the data to sit within ArcGIS inside either the web map or as a service. So you can learn a little bit more about that if you quickly take a photo of that URL on the screen and Google it later. So the data download button, which I mentioned earlier, that will be coming to ArcGIS Enterprise. So the ability to download a CSV of your data and information into a format that people can use in other systems. So my final slide before handing over to Scott. There are a few trending topics that are driving the development lifecycle of dashboards. And one of them is 3D scene support. It's fantastic having a 2D map, but having a 3D visual display of your data that then can filter other widgets and other elements that you add. That's something that the team are looking at currently. The runtime filtering with the time slider, that's really trying to make it quicker and easier for people using your data to find what they need. Printing, there's still a need, it seems, for printing things. You can be able, the ability to print the whole dashboard or just individual elements on the page. Dashboard templates for those who don't want to have to configure from scratch, and then the all-important automation. So keep an eye out on the What's New page as these new capabilities come out, but I'm personally very excited for a lot of them. So back to you, Scott.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Ed. Ed's a bit of a whiz with the dashboard. He uses them a lot in a variety of different types of work that he does. So I know that he is, and so am I, excited about those new features. Speaking about exciting features, we wanted to just share with you the road ahead for ArcMap in this case. So what does the future hold for ArcMap? And to tell us this exciting story, I'm going to pass across to Jess.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. So we're going to go ahead and step through all the future stages of ArcMap, migrating to ArcGIS Pro. Thank you for your time.
So a bit of fun there, but we do strongly encourage you all to make that move to ArcGIS Pro. I know most of you have. There are some people who just can't for a variety of specific technical reasons, but the future is Pro. As you can see, the summary of the life cycle for ArcMap, we're currently in the extended support phase. The next after that is moving to mature support, where there's a reduced set of coverages that we get from a tech support, release, patch, security, etc. So make that move to ArcGIS Pro. There's a link there you can use. Either go to that link or go to the Eagle website to find out how we can help you make that move to Pro. Speaking of Pro, I'd like to pass back to Ed to tell us a little bit what the roadmap is for ArcGIS Pro. Ed.
Cheers, Scott. So yeah, dashboards and desktop, it seems to be, the common theme of products starting with D. Anyway, what's coming? I'm sure you're all excited about this. So the first thing I wanted to start with is the fact that hopefully you feel listened to. With ArcGIS Ideas, it's something that I can only encourage you to utilise more of. This is the direct line for you as a user of the software directly to the product teams. And just as an example of how many ideas have been listened to and incorporated, I'm not going to go through the list of 50 individually. Stay tuned for next year's plenary. Perhaps we might get a shot. But a lot of ideas were put forward, and a majority of them actually came from ArcMap users, really needing those capabilities that they've been waiting on in order to make that jump. So yeah, 50 plus ideas have been incorporated into 3.0, and many of them are being currently worked on as we go forward for future releases. So the roadmap for ArcGIS Pro is quite comprehensive. There's a lot of stuff that I'll bring up in a second. It's a very ambitious team trying to bring as much new functionality as they can to ArcGIS Pro. In terms of the release plans, just to be aware of, we're currently sitting on 3.0. There'll be a couple of patch releases in between now and 3.1, which is due for February. So stay tuned, Waitangi Day, excellent opportunity to upgrade to 3.1. However, touching on a few of my ArcMap friends out in the audience, I know there's been a few things holding you back, and the first of them is probably the support for around discarding for non-version editing. So a lot of people ask for discard for non-version editing. It's something that ArcMap could only do, and hasn't been in Pro until now. So the team's actively focused on working on this as part of 3.1. So this will, first of all, look at adding a new reader to it. It's not available just yet. It's a little bit tricky, as you can understand, to configure, but they're looking to bring it in within the near term. So the next thing is geodatabase schema reports. So this is very exciting. If you know X-ray tools, add-in for Arc Catalog, I used it probably about 6 years ago. I don't remember it fondly, but it seemed to jog my memory now. A lot asked for it. It was the highest voted up idea out of the 50 that you saw on the slide there. First of all, the plan is to include a GP tool that will export a schema to a geodatabase, and you'll be able to export that as either Excel or an XML report. You can already start doing a reporting audit once you have this. The next phase is comparing schemas. So being able to visualize diagrams is the key one here. And then in the third phase, bringing it all back to a geodatabase and then taking the export schema and creating your geodatabase that you need from it. So this is quite exciting for those who have been waiting for it for a long, long time. Connecting to external services using OAuth 2.0. So ArcGIS Pro is making all the efforts it can to be very friendly in the cloud. Cloud integration is becoming more and more popular. Esri is noticing this across the globe. And so being able to have pros deployed in the cloud as part of your cloud infrastructure, we understand is really important. You can use OAuth2 and what the team are working on to connect to external services. So for example, if you're using Azure Data Lakes, Gen 2, the team are looking to make it easy to connect to that. They're using the existing ArcGIS Pro cloud storage connection and enhancing that to take this new capability. Round of applause out the front row. So also OGC services, looking to support those also, those that require authentication with OAuth 2.0. Now going into some of the more visual stuff, timeline views. This is coming in the midterm for ArcGIS Pro. So timeline views are really exciting because quite often we focus on the spatial element, the what and the where, but what about the when? And with more and more data sets becoming available and more ETL processes creating data sets that we can use in Pro, the ability to really explore the temporal aspect is really important. So this complements how you view spatial data in the map. It shows where in time your data falls. And I guess there are two main things that you'll see here. You'll see that histogram view and that chronological view. Both really important for showing the context within time, but also the amounts of things occurring over time. So all of that is currently already available if you use ArcGIS Pro for intelligence, but they're looking to lift and shift that to also be available inside ArcGIS Pro. Now lastly is simulation modelling. So this allows you to model complex phenomena such as a bridge failing, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. Quite scary. So this will allow you to model complex phenomena, not just floodwaters going through a town, but also things like airflow and any other physical models that you have data for. What sets this apart from hydro modelling, the traditional tool for this, is really that realistic interactive playback. And with more and more 3D coming into the platform and things like the building outlines that Toitu Te Whenua maintain, being able to produce these is going to be well in grasp of many of you. But being able to compare what-if scenarios using Pro is pretty awesome. And hopefully, come next year, I'll be peeking over your screens in the Expo Centre and everyone will be creating little models like this. So that was all based on gaming technology. Now the slide everyone seems to get their phones out for. I'll give you a second. So there's a lot coming. The team are pretty ambitious for the near, mid and long term for Pro. So a couple of highlights to go through. The reality mapping extension, so being able to capture and analyse 3D data from aerial, drone and ground-based sensors is an automated end-to-end process. Support for professional photogrammetry workflows, improved precision and speed is something that's just a value add for anyone in that space. Being able to transform imagery and LiDAR, a lot of regions coming on board with some really nice LiDAR data, and being able to generate that into point clouds, photo-textured 3D meshes, and true orthos. So all pretty fantastic. Provenance and knowledge graphs. So for the Intel community out there, being supported provenance for knowledge graphs is what's coming in the near term. Scientific data, DSG ingestion. So for those who use NetCDF data, this is going to make it just easier and also quicker for you to use inside Pro, so keep an eye out for that. Catalogue layers, metadata is important. I'd like to declare 2023 is the year of improving our metadata. It's going to only be easier, as you saw in online, but also within Pro as well, making our data more discoverable for others to use it and understand the provenance of it. So indoor positioning QA, so these are tools that help our users increase the IPS or indoor positioning system resolution. They'll be able to analyse their IPS deployments and improve the blue dot experience. Time-enabled scene layers. So previously it's only been the domain of our feature services to do that. Being able to time-enable scene layers is something that the team are looking at in the near term to bring into Pro. And then additional deployment options as well. So making it ArcGIS Pro easier for you and many others in your organisation to use for your IT admins and GIS coordinators. So that's by adding additional options that can be configured during the deployment. But as you can see, pretty ambitious, pretty exciting. And yeah, I look forward to being here at Plenary next year, showing you what's new in Pro. But with that, I'm going to hand back to Scott.
Thanks, Ed. I'm going to turn this around pretty quickly and pass on to our next road ahead component, which is about the content that I estimate 90% of you use in some form, even if it's only just the base maps. So tell us what's coming in terms of the content in ArcGIS. I'm going to pass over to Boudewijn.
Thank you. Yeah, so with content, it's also about what you guys need and also make available. And tomorrow we've got a content session, and I invite you all to come across, because we actually do a little poll there to see what it is that you all need. What we are working on is screen 4. So yesterday I told you about the current layers. And the current layers, they're basically showing the latest boundary layers that are available. However, we also got a request to have an archive layer, so you can easily go through the changes that have happened since boundary layers have been published. So with the next release, we're aiming to get all of these layers. I don't know why technology doesn't like me, man. So what we're going to do is get all of that data into one layer per data set. So for the regional councils, for example, have a current layer that you can use in your maps, but also have a layer that has all the years in there. So we'll put a date in there so you can use the time slider to go through them. And we're also doing other stuff. Currently, we're looking at creating 3D buildings for New Zealand for wherever there's high-resolution LiDAR available. So we got a couple of areas that we've processed now, and the results look pretty good. So we hope to release that as a beta pretty soon. In 3D, we're also looking at, and that is more of an R&D phase, because we're running into some challenges with the classification of the LiDAR, but creating a 3D LiDAR, 3D tree data set derived from LiDAR. And they're all there to support 3D projects that you may be working on. And in Living Atlas, the Living Atlas is also available in ArcGIS Enterprise. There's only one big problem, is it's a subset of the data, and also it only gets updated if you upgrade ArcGIS Enterprise. So that is what is available now. But from ArcGIS Enterprise 11.1, there will be more Living Atlas layers available, but also content bundles will be made available, so you don't have to upgrade your ArcGIS Enterprise to get the latest and greatest of content that is being published by Esri, Eagle, and the likes of you. Staying on the topic of ArcGIS Enterprise, I've got the most amazing slides next. They're not very visual, but they are important, because we just released ArcGIS Enterprise 11.0, and with ArcGIS Enterprise 11, the versioning changes a little. So we will have major and minor versions. So we start with 11.0, 11.1, 11.2. All the even numbers will be short-term releases, and the odd number versions will be long-term releases. And currently, ArcGIS Enterprise 11.1 is planned for late Q1 2023. Something else that is new with ArcGIS Enterprise is that there's a new approach to working with beta functionality. So previously there was beta functionality that you could install on top of ArcGIS Enterprise, like the map viewer, before it became a part of ArcGIS Enterprise in the default installation. Now sometimes ArcGIS Enterprise comes with beta functionality, but that will only be for the even numbers, so for the short-term releases. Aside that, there will also be separate installs for other beta functionality that you can choose to install. And I want to give two examples of that. So one is on the webhooks. Webhooks are available in ArcGIS Enterprise at the moment on portal items, users, and groups. But in ArcGIS 11.0, as a beta, there are webhooks available on the feature surface. So if something updates, deletes, adds, you can trigger a webhook. And that will be final in 11.1. That is also when there will be a nice user interface for it. Another interesting one is that you can also do that on your geoprocessing services. So if it completed successfully or if it failed, you can push that information to a webhook, and from there you can trigger another process. Then the second example, and that's going to be a separate install, it's going to be available soon, is custom data feeds. ArcGIS Enterprise supports a whole load of databases and cloud stores and data stores, but there are some that it doesn't support, or some where you can't actually move the data into ArcGIS Enterprise. And a couple of examples are Elasticsearch or Tableau. And what is coming is something called custom data feeds. So how does it work? ArcGIS server goes to that data source, gets the information. With Portal, it creates a feature service that you can then consume in all of your apps and maps. So that is coming soon on the early adopter website. So if you want to try that out, keep an eye out for the release of that one. And with that, I will pass it on back to Scott.
Thank you, Boudewijn. Okay, so the next section we want to look at in terms of what's coming in the road ahead are the mobile apps. So we saw these again yesterday, what's current, all that information that we showed on plenary yesterday is all what you can use right now. This is a little bit ahead, but to give us a view of what's happening in this exciting and fast evolving space, I'm going to pass over to Julian.
Kia ora everyone. Unfortunately, I don't have a crazy cool video of me going around adventuring around Wellington, but I do have some crazy cool new features for you, so I'm sure you'll enjoy those. As you're aware, there's a number of different field apps available to you, and I'd just like to go through a few of them with some of the new features that are coming up. And let's start off with field maps. So in the near term, there are some pretty exciting new features coming. Some of them are building upon existing functionality, and some of them are brand new, so I'm just going to step through a few of them. Also in the midterm as well, we have, actually I might just skip that one. We'll come back to that. With field maps, as you're aware, it's an all-encompassing app, already involving the capabilities of Explorer, Collector, and Tracker. And as you can see there, we've also got some features coming soon, and one of those being workforce integration. So workforce being your app for work order management, and we finally have a bit more of an understanding of when that's coming, and that's going to be in 2023, so it's not going to be coming this year for those of you that have been holding out for that. In terms of deployment enhancements, so one of the key aspects of field maps is to make it easier for you to deploy. Rather than deploying 5 applications, you're only deploying 1. And so part of that is it's going to be easier to get started and to build your project. So you're able to build your feature layers, your fields and everything directly within the field maps builder. And another one, which I know Liam at Wellington City Council has been bugging me about this one for a bit, is being able to have one map on field maps rather than 2 for an offline map and an online map. You'll be able to have one map to rule them both. Geo-triggers, we mentioned that yesterday in terms of having the ability to use a polygon feature and get notifications when you're entering or exiting an area. There's going to be support to do the same with point and line features. And so you'll be able to create, say, a buffer on the fly within the field maps web builder to allow you to have those notifications as well. Layer filters, so similar to how you would filter layers in a web map, that functionality is also coming to field maps as well. Being able to essentially create almost like a view of the data directly within the app, just to see the data that your field teams need to see. Indoor positioning, that's a sort of a word that's been coming up quite a bit recently. And as we mentioned yesterday as well, Field Maps has indoor positioning capabilities to be able to locate yourself within a building. But those geofencing features aren't limited to outdoors. You're now, in the future, going to be able to have that same geofencing capability within indoor models as well, as the same goes for location sharing too. Utility networks. Those of you that attended the utility session, I imagine that would have covered how you can use field maps and the utility network side by side. One of the exciting new features that has been requested for quite a while was tracing within field maps. And in the upcoming releases, you'll be able to do features like tracing offline and be able to view your utility network offline as well. With editing being an exciting feature in a future release as well. There we go. So that's a bit about field maps. We'll now just move on to Survey 123. Surprising animations that you don't know that are actually there, but they are. In terms of field maps, for those of you that, in terms of Survey 123, for those of you that joined us for the session this morning, you would have seen that spatial calculations were an exciting new feature that I think are going to be coming out in a couple of weeks or so. I'm not too sure on the timelines there, but keep an eye on that. Being able to pull data from other layers like what we saw in field maps as well. We'll just step through a few of those features. So. Being able to connect laser rangefinders to Survey 123, that's a capability that's already there, but there's going to be extended support for more laser rangefinders as well. And it's a really efficient way to bring capture data using a laser into your app and directly feed that into fields. Some of the really, really cool things, which I got to see a little sneak peek of this recently, and I'm afraid I can't share with you anymore, but being able to do object detection and image classification within Survey 123 is a feature that's coming as well. So being able to take a photo of an image and write to a field what it is that you're actually seeing. So whether that be a species classification or perhaps identifying assets. Also in that space, the Survey 123 team are also working on image recognition, so being able to detect and extraction, being able to extract details from documents such as a driver's license. And likewise, also being able to, blur things like personally identifiable information while you're capturing that information in the field as well. I imagine this could be helpful for the likes of maybe even the Rural Lookout team with the work that they're doing there. Okay, and again, that word of IPS, indoor positioning systems, is another feature that they're looking to incorporate in Survey 123. Okay, we're being pretty rapid fire, but we'll keep going into rapid data apps like Quick Capture. It's a very clicky clicker, this one. There we go. Okay, so with Quick Capture, we're going to have the ability to have dynamic choice lists. So rather than specifying those directly within the web builder, we'll have the ability to create dynamic choice lists, domains as you may, based on a feature service. So I imagine that is an exciting feature that you'll be looking forward to. Barcode scanning, for those of you that may be working with barcodes. I recall in the commercial session, Deb and Mike were talking about scanning barcodes, and maybe Quick Capture may be an option for you in the future. And one final feature, again, indoor positioning systems. Being able to, again, locate yourself within a building and capture data indoors accurately. As we all know, GPS accuracy isn't the best when you're in a big building like this. But anyway, I think that may be all I have on field applications. Back to you, Scott.
Thanks, Julian. So lots happening in the mobile app space, whether it be Survey 123, Quick Capture, or Field Maps, and also the inclusion of some of those features like Workforce. Moving beyond the out-of-the-box applications, I want to take a moment to talk about our developer community, and to give them a bit of a view of the future themselves, I'm going to pass over to Josh Gore.
Awesome, thanks Scott. There's a heap of stuff coming with the SDKs. All the functionality that we've seen today starts with updates to the SDKs. So I'd just like to start by running through some of the updates to the JavaScript API. Just around the corner, we can look forward to the 4.25 release of the ArcGIS API for JavaScript. Already part of this, and you can try this out in the next release channel, is the ability to convert SVG vector graphics to SIM or cartographic information model symbols. Some great improvements to editing attachments in the editor widget. Support for tooltip options in the 2D sketch widget to update it to match those that we've brought in for the 3D widget. And that allows you to show line and polygon information as you sketch. And also the ability to delete records in the feature table widget. And not necessarily in this release, but soon after will be the ability to persist route layers, some animated symbol options. We're still working on exactly what these look like, but there's some ideas on the slide there. The ability to persist the results of interactive analysis so that you can display these and present them to other people. A new dimensioning tool, so that's similar to the draw and measure widget, but specifically for adding dimensions to objects and having those update as you update the object geometry. And we're really going to focus on improving the editing capabilities. That's things like, well, improving the user experience, focusing on group layer editing, version management, undo and redo, some form of continuous editing, and also rule-based snapping. Well, switching over to the Calcite UI, a big theme going forward will be web components, and using these to release some of the more complex ArcGIS UI elements that might be generally useful. So that's things like the arcade editor, so that you can add arcade functionality to your own custom apps. More chart options, an item browser, and making the share dialog available. There's a few other areas we're focusing on with this too. One is looking at improving validation for form elements. Another is improving that Figma design kit. So making sure that when you're configuring designs in Figma, that's a prototype, the prototyping tool that we use at Esri, making sure that experience is consistent with what a developer actually sees. And then ongoing is just improving the Calcite language. So we use Calcite across all the Esri apps. So there's a whole lot of teams that have come together to create it. So making sure those APIs are consistent so that just to improve the user experience there. And then finally, there's something that I'm personally really excited about, and that's the upcoming release of some of the Tailwind utility classes which you use to build Calcite. For those who aren't familiar with Tailwind, it's a styling framework which is used to create the Calcite components, but which can be used more broadly when you're creating your own applications. So these will really help you to develop your own components in the same style as the official ones. Calcite's a very fast-moving library, and there's releases coming out every couple of weeks. And then finally, on the more long-term roadmap, in Calcite, there's some more general components coming, like a nav bar or a sliding drawer for mobile use. And then with the ArcGIS API for JavaScript, we're looking at including support for true curves. And we're also looking more about how we can include dimensions in maps. And we're continually working on improvements to the labeling engine. So we really look forward to seeing what you can create with these new tools. Well, when it comes to runtime, the key thing I'd like to share is the upcoming new 200 release. The current release, 100.15, will be a long-term support release. Well, in the new version, we'll be introducing two completely new APIs. These are based on Kotlin and Swift. So currently for Android app development, you need to use the Java API or the Objective-C based API, and you can use these with Kotlin and Swift, but they're not designed to do it first class. These new APIs will enable you to do that. They'll use the best new language features, and they'll integrate with the style and the syntax and the experience that developers really know and love. And finally, there's some other updates coming to the runtime SDKs, the desktop SDKs. So the runtime SDK for Qt will be upgraded to Qt 6. We'll be improving our Java FX support, and then the .NET runtime API will include support for .NET MAUI. And this will really place that .NET SDK as an excellent cross-platform development for app and mobile across Android and iOS. And just for your reassurance for the developers in this room, there are some things that won't change. So the key concepts and patterns of runtime won't change, and neither will the licensing or the product lifestyle. With that quick update, I'd like to leave you with Mike Branscombe from Esri. Mike's a product manager at Esri, and he manages the ArcGIS runtime and the Maps SDKs. And today, he's going to share with us some of the things that we can expect soon with the Game Engine SDKs. Thanks.
Let's take a look at the road ahead for the ArcGIS Maps SDKs. In the last 2 months, in June and July, we've had releases of version 1 of the ArcGIS Maps SDK for Unity and the ArcGIS Maps SDK for Unreal Engine. These are the first commercial releases of these SDKs, and it's the culmination of more than 5 years' work to bring accurate, high-precision GIS data to game engines. It started with a core set of high-performance layer types, which are cached or tiled. They're supported both online and offline from packages. They support API key access and OAuth 2, the ability to render based on attributes, both global and local scenes. There's a geometry engine for analysis, and multiple platforms are supported, mobile, desktop, and specific XR devices. The roadmap for the rest of this year is us focusing on additional layer types with enhanced elevation service support and additional SDK resources. Let's take a look at that in a bit more detail. We'll be looking at support for vector tiled layers. So we'll be looking at support for the building scene layer, material support with building textures and surfaces, the ability to combine multiple elevation sources within a scene, and of course, improved SDK support with an expanded range of samples. We'll be looking at how we support the OpenStreetMap 3D base layers and 3D base map, but as a single global base map. And we'll be looking at support for the point scene layer.
Cool. So a little bit of a view of what's coming from the developer space from Josh, but also from Mike there based in Redlands, talking about what's happening in the Maps SDK, that exciting fusion of gaming engine technology and ArcGIS technology. Speaking of exciting and immersive, I want to pass over now to someone who can tell us a little bit about what's coming in the 3D and maybe even the 4D space, Gert van Maren.
Thanks, Scott. Number 4, please. Here we go. Cool. Yeah, I'd just like to briefly go over what our big topics are for 3D for the year ahead. We have some short-term and long-term, but if we look on the short-term side, we are investigating if and how we should support cesium 3D tiles inside of ArcGIS. And if you guys have got any feedback on whether we should or not should and how we should do it, please come see me or Andreas. We really need that feedback. We are working on what we call our 3D object feature layer story. Basically, that is a new smart 3D format in the geodatabase that allows materials and all those kind of parameters stored with the object in the geodatabase. We're looking at how you can update point cloud scene layers in the cloud. You got a new LiDAR server coming out. How can you update that? How can you update parts of that scene layer in a nice way? On the voxel side of things, we just enabled voxels being rendered in the browser. How can you better style them, etc.? How can you better work with them? It's a big topic. OpenStreetMap 3D base maps. It's been mentioned before. We really want to work towards like a cartographic product, a 3D base map product based on OpenStreetMap data that you can leverage in your applications. Long term, and these are topics, right, that we're working on, and we really need your feedback, but it's all around making our reality meshes more intelligent, supporting time on scene layers. And one of the things I kind of wanted to deep dive a little bit further into is real-time data and how we support time and features, right? So, and I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint, so I always like to show some 3D stuff, right? And if we think about time and features and time, we of course, we have the real time, and then we go, what does it really mean, right? Is it just up-to-date data? So I see my latest data reflected in 3D, or is it more updates every 5 minutes or every 1 second? What does it really mean? Now, before we go there, I wanted to show you, this is this beautiful reality mesh we have from Christchurch. And I got some data from Environment Canterbury, right? And these are just 2D polygons with attributes. Nothing really fancy. We all have that data, and I can step through it, but it's really hard to view this in a 2D visualization. So what you can do just by leveraging your attributes, you can bring this up into a 3D model, right? And this is 2D data with some bunch of attributes that I'm visualizing here in 3D. We can do this now. There's nothing, no magic, no nothing there. It's just leveraging the power of the attributes that you will have. And then you can go a bit further and start to filter and just show me all the stairwells and show me all the lifts, right? Show me that together with my emergency management equipment. Really simple stuff, really powerful, possible now straight away. Now this next thing, and I've been doing this for quite a while, but it got me really excited. These trees here are just points in the database, point feature layers with attributes. It does allow me to create a 3D object of that tree by just leveraging a height attribute on that point, a crown width attribute, and a genus, and I'm getting a beautiful 3D rendering. What got me even more excited, but I'm easily excitable, right? So don't take my word for it, but I got here field maps, right? It's a bit hard to see. That is that point feature layer that is in field maps, and I can click that point here in my field maps. And then I should click it right there. And then I get all my attributes, right? You're all used to these, and I can go into edit attributes. And then if I'm a guy that is responsible for tree management in Christchurch, and I can just see that, you know, I measure that tree again, and I see, you know, oh, hang on, that tree is a bit bigger. I just click here on my field maps apps. I've updated the attribute, right? And then without touching my 3D environment, that thing grows in the 3D scene. And that sort of means that I always have a live operational view of my operational data in 3D, right? The 3D model is a live view of your data. That got me quite excited. And the other thing that got me excited as well, sorry, I need to give on a bit about this, but I said it's also driven by genus, right? So if I look at my attribute genus, and I do the same thing, and I go to my attribute genus, and I noticed that something changed there. You see what gets me excited. It's a bit silly, but right. I'm changing here again an attribute, and what happens on that side, the tree dies, right? I mean, again, a live view on the data. I think that's the underlying thought, right? You've got a live view on your data in 3D, but based on your 2D data that you can just change through your attributes. So this is available now. But now let's go and what are concepts that we are thinking about, right? What are sort of the ideas that we have? So again, these are concepts, and we really would like your feedback on these ideas. But what if you have sensor data, like say pedestrian sensor data coming in? This is parade data from Zurich. Now this is all a bit sped up, right, for this demo, but this can come through velocity. And how should we visualize changes in attribute over time, right? We really like feedback on that. How do you want to have it visualized? Should we visualize it like this? All these sorts of things, right? So this is trying to visualize attribute data that changes over time. Another thing, and again, concept, right? This is not something that's coming. This is us playing around with our APIs. But here are all the buses in New York City. And I can, for example, click on a bus line. And this is actually real-time data. Here we are looking at specific bus data, specific accident data that is happening now in New York. We're picking up that stream. And if we wait long enough, you see that little indication there shows where it's going. That point will move. Or maybe not, that guy had an accident. But, you know, this is kind of this live operational view. But when I look at this, I'm not quite satisfied with the visualization, right? It's just the point here, it is static, and it'll jump away, because then the next data point comes in. But what if we can do the same? And of course, I can't really, not show any demo without paragliders. But here, This paraglider has a sensor on itself and is sending its position every second, but it's also sending its PGL roll as well. So we're getting the data every second, but I want to visualize that beautifully in 3D, all smooth and animated. Now that's something that I'm looking for, but we'd love to hear from you guys. Is that something you're looking for as well when you have your time data or your IoT sensors coming in? And then finally, another step further, so attributes change over time, position change over time, but what if we start to combine this sort of time-enabled visualization with real-time analytics? So in this case here, I'm having here an object animated across a track in New York City, but it's doing a real-time analysis, in this case where the Wi-Fi points are, while it's being animated over time. So real-time data, real-time analytics at the same time. Those are things we need feedback from you guys. So come see Andreas, come see me, and let's have a discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Garrett. So lots of exciting stuff happening there. We do have a 3D across the ArcGIS session happening tomorrow. So to learn more about the 3D currently and have that discussion that Garrett's encouraging you to have. This is a very special group we have here, and to have that opportunity to speak to Garrett and to Andreas about the 3D roadmap for Esri is a really special opportunity. So I recommend you take that tomorrow in that session. Another group of developers you can speak to directly are the LocalMaps developers. So tell us what's happening in this exciting web application that we saw on stage yesterday, on stage this morning, and the road ahead now. I want to ask Lauren and Josh to join us.
Okay, so what I've learned is don't go after 3D, because whatever you do is not going to be as cool. But that's okay, we live and we learn. Okay, so the roadmap for LocalMaps version 3, so we've mentioned that a couple of times, so I'm just going to take you through the short term, near term, long term, and then we'll go into some things that people haven't heard about, and then Josh will take us through a few things in detail. So in the short term, you saw us talk about the Gallery 3.x yesterday, in both the LG and in the plenary, so we're looking at rolling that out, and we're reducing the development for version 2. So pretty much it'll only be patches from now on, there'll be no ongoing development in that version. And then we're, at the moment, obviously building the foundations for version 3 as well. In the near term will be the re-architecture of LocalMaps, and Josh will talk to that a wee bit in a second. And we are currently in the process of rebuilding the viewer using Experience Builder, which is really exciting. So we'll be leveraging some of what Esri are pushing out into Experience Builder, but we'll also be, I guess, wrapping up some of the widgets and the custom capabilities that are in LocalMaps and making sure they're available in that same application. Obviously moving to the JavaScript API 4.x, and we've also got the core widgets that will be available in the first release of the viewer there. So these are the most well-used widgets within LocalMaps, and we'll also be rebuilding the draw measure tool based on some user feedback as well. So it's pretty exciting. In the long term, we'll be pulling in the rest of the LocalMaps widgets to the Experience Builder viewer, and also building the software as a service solution offering for LocalMaps. So we've been having some really good discussions with you guys today about that. So that will be coming in the next wee while. With that will be the containerized version for on-prem. And for those that maybe only want to use one component of LocalMaps, they don't want the whole thing, they want to use maybe the reporting, we'll be having a more modular solution to allow for that as well. Now, one thing that we wanted to talk to you today is, I guess, a new idea, a new development that we're looking at, and this comes off what Bouderbane talked about with Enterprise being enabling webhooks for feature services. So we're looking at having a LocalMaps webhook integration. So this will allow you to leverage the feature service webhooks that in ArcGIS Online and soon to be Enterprise. This might be, say you're going out and doing a water meter reading and you want to be able to trigger an action from that, and that might be generating a report that you've configured in LocalMaps. So that will go off to the LocalMaps reporting engine and then allow you to do a process after that. And that might be recording that same report in an internal document management system that you can see in the GIF there, or it might be sending it to an external customer at the same time, and that might be just via an email. So that's what we're looking at to take advantage of what's coming out in the other parts of the platform. And we hope this will be useful. If it is, if it's something that you're interested in hearing more about, then have a talk to us, have a talk to Josh and Edwin and I, and Grant as well. And yeah, we can tell you about it. And now I'm going to hand it over to Josh.
Awesome, thanks, Lauren. Just wanted to talk for a couple of minutes about the architecture and our plans for re-architecting LocalMaps. So where are we at now? You know, LocalMaps started with an application for one council, and then it was a monolith application. So just the one gallery and of course also the viewer. And that was the perfect architecture for when it started. But it's really grown since then. We've seen it being used in a whole lot of different environments. So what we're looking at doing now is splitting it out. So some of the other limitations before we look at that. What we're seeing now is that it's being used standalone, so someone might just want the reporting. Reporting will be one of the things that we're really looking at. Currently, it needs to be run on iOS in a Windows environment. There's a few limitations with that. Everyone has slightly different environments, so we're looking at how to improve that. And again, that whole environment thing is something that we're looking at, how to improve that. So our solution for that, there we go, is microservices. So what's that? It's essentially splitting out the application, taking all of the individual little bits and putting it into these individual services. So for example, a service for running reports, or a service for talking to a database and bringing back that data, or a service for authentication, or all of the other bits of local maps that you'll know and use. So we're looking to modularize it. And what does that really mean? Well, it means that we can use those individual modules in different applications. We can split it out. But at the same time, if you want to report update one piece of local maps, you can do that without taking the whole application offline. It gives you the ability to do that. It gives you the ability to scale. So again, with that report example, if you have a public reporting service and you want to run a whole lot of reports at once, you've got the ability to do that without needing to use one big massive server and that monolith application. And it takes the environment out. So that'll mean things down the track, like perhaps being able to support Linux or being able to use it in Azure without needing to run a VM. And eventually, we're looking at moving to a software as a service solution. So we'll still have an on-prem version that'll be using Docker and a Docker Compose file, but we'll also be looking at building a Kubernetes version, which we'll be able to provide as a software as a service. So yeah, that's what we had to share with you today. Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks, Josh. We spoke yesterday about how imagery is becoming much more pervasive, both the capabilities and the availability of the data itself. To give us a bit of a roadmap for imagery across ArcGIS, I want to pass back to Boudewijn.
So first, again, a little plug. Tomorrow, starting at 9, so don't make it too late at dinner. We've got 2 imagery sessions talking about LiDAR, but also imagery. But I want to show just 2 things that Esri is currently working on. And the first is going on to what I talked about yesterday, that Sentinel-1 radar imagery. So with ArcGIS Pro 3.0, we can now actually process the data into analysis-ready layers. We can visualize it and then use it for analysis. But what is coming is, first of all, wizards. So the tools are there, but there will be wizards to make that workflow a little bit easier. And that comes with pre-canned workflows to go from A to B real quick. Another thing is that there will be support for more sensors. So currently it's Sentinel-1 that's supported, but there will be more sensors supported to create analysis ready from that SAR data. And also in the space of analysis, being able to do more coherent analysis, like the change detection that I showed before, is real important if you want to compare images from before and after. So that's coming as well. And then there's also another type of imagery that we haven't really talked about so far, but will be discussed in the imagery session tomorrow, and that is oriented imagery. So that is basically all imagery that is taken at an orientation, where at some point you see, can't find the word, but sky and ground. Horizon. The horizon, and that's actually pretty close to the Dutch word as well. But currently, we can work with that, as in there's an oriented imagery catalog in ArcGIS Pro. There are oriented imagery management tools to load that oriented imagery catalog up with images and videos. Also on the web, there's an experience builder widget a viewer that allows you to just go to a location and see the image that was taken there, which can be a 360 image or a video. But it's all, you've got to install an add-in for ArcGIS Pro, and you've got to download the management tools. So what the team is currently working on is actually making it part of core. And that means that a new layer type will be introduced, the oriented imagery catalog, but also that it will be, that the viewer will be integrated into Map Viewer, into Scene Viewer, and into ArcGIS Pro, as well as the management tools, that it will also be part of the core of ArcGIS Pro. So that is something to look forward to in imagery, and with that I will pass it on back to you, Scott. The horizon.
Thanks, Bernadine. So the session we mentioned tomorrow about imagery also has LiDAR and it also has drones in it. So for a bit of a deep dive on what the capabilities are there, please do attend that session. In the meantime, we are looking beyond the horizon to the future a little bit, and to hear what's happening with SiteScan, I want to pass across to James.
Cheers, Scott. Yeah, so there's some exciting capabilities coming to SiteScan, really setting you up to soar into 2023 and beyond. In SiteScan Flight, so that's the mobile application that allows you to connect to your drones and then send it out and perform your flight plans. There's some new capabilities coming, things like merging currently the two apps into one to make it a simpler experience for your field users. Also a thing called Terrain Follow. That's getting the ability to bring in your own custom data sets. I'm thinking particularly our forestry clients. They often have really detailed elevation data for their management areas. So being able to bring that in and use that to improve and hopefully improve safety and quality of your captures. There's also things like daisy chaining missions, so say you have 3 surveys that you want to complete, being able to complete them separately rather than having to do one massive area. And also being able to send out waypoint missions as well. On the management side, so actually coming back onto your browser and processing, managing and analyzing that imagery, as well as performing some sort of fleet management. There's some enhancements coming here as well. So the integration is improving with the rest of the ArcGIS platform, particularly to ArcGIS Online and Enterprise. So being able to publish in those 2 new formats, tiled imagery and dynamic imagery, directly from SiteScan. Also, I mentioned oriented imagery is becoming more and more part of the platform, so being able to publish those directly from SiteScan as well. And also automation is improving as well. So if you have a site that you're going to go back to week after week and you just want the latest updates to be published to an existing feature layer, being able to schedule that from SiteScan as well. More enhancements to 2D and 3D. That's going to come over time, but that's really all I have for you today. I look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, James. Okay, so the last technology update we have for you this afternoon is ArcGIS Urban. So ArcGIS Urban, as you saw yesterday morning, is used by a number of organisations across New Zealand to do urban planning, project viewing, etc. So I wanted to give you a quick view of some of the features that have been included in the recent releases, and then give you a little bit of a roadmap for what's happening beyond today. So in the February release, February of this year release, there was a number of improvements, such as the non-multi-part polygons, saving suitability models within ArcGIS Urban, and also the UX, user experience for shading, was also improved with some other features. Then in the June release, a number of other new features. Undo, redo is always my favorite feature in any software. Control Z is my friend. As well as zoning and overlay symbology, and a few other features, including the export of viewpoints out to slides, so you can jump to those viewpoints and reproduce them in a web viewer. So those have been the features that have come in the last couple of releases. In terms of road ahead, I wanted to just summarize here the key things that the development team are working on in the short and medium term. So take a look at that. If you're an urban user, hopefully these relate to the gaps you might see in functionality right now. The one that I'm particularly excited about is local coordinate systems one there in the center. So that allows us to use the urban technology with an NZTM projection, which will break down some barriers we've had with it historically. So watch this space for updates to ArcGIS Urban for these features and others. So overall, with Esri's technology, with the ArcGIS system, there's ongoing development every day. There's development happening across a whole range of different technologies that are incorporated inside of ArcGIS, and the release patterns vary by different products, but it's an ongoing march of new technology progress. We've shared a number of those things with you this afternoon, and hopefully it's given you a bit of a view of what's coming in the future. But as I said earlier, please bear in mind that the advances and features we've been sharing here vary from those in the short term to the longer term, as well as some of those in the conceptual stage that was shared by Gert, for example. So you may need a time machine if you want to go and use those features in a hurry. Luckily, though, you may be able to find someone who can help at tonight's dinner. So tonight's dinner, for those of you who are joining us, is going to be in this building, starting at 6:30 p.m. It's going to be upstairs in the Rivers room, which is up here and to the left. It's a beautiful room with some natural light, which maybe we've been missing out on in this room for the last few days. Even though it'll be dark, but that's okay. We can use the time slider to fix that, I'm sure. So upstairs from 6:30, and the place is the Rivers room. Now, for those of you who may have missed the memo, and this has happened in previous years, people have missed the fact that it's a fancy dress dinner. People have turned up and wondered what the heck was going on. So if you are going to participate, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of your costumes. Many of us are. There's some weird and wonderful creations I know of already. We're looking forward to have you join us up there at 6:30 in the Back to the Future themed conference dinner. A couple other points. I've got a sponsor prize draw. So for those of you who followed the instructions, went to the expo, got your stamps at the various expo stands, we have made a selection, a random selection of prize winners. And I have been given a piece of paper here that tells me who these prize winners are. So first of all, thanks to all of our sponsors and exhibitors who participated in the prize draw. It was entirely random, even though the results here might not appear so, I can guarantee you that they are. Okay, right. So the first prize draw we had from all those people who went around and did the stamps was for GBS. Their prize was a PB Tech $500 voucher, which is pretty awesome. Actually, theirs was not random. Theirs was a talent-based selection. It was a winner of a dart competition, and the winner of that is Dave Whelan from Invercargill City Council. Is Dave here? Cool. So stay seated just now. I don't have it, unfortunately. I haven't got the voucher. If I did have, I might not be here. So what I'd say is that when you leave the auditorium, go and say Haley or Raynor, and they'll have the voucher for you when we leave. But well done, David. The next was Altera or Trimble, this is an awesome prize, a Catalyst DA2 GNSS receiver, 12-month subscription to 1 centimeter positioning. This is worth a lot of money, 7.5K's worth of subscription. And the winner for that, I'm reliably informed by my Dutch co-presenter, is Mathieu Boonen from Aratu Forests. Is Mathieu here? Okay. If you're not in the room, we will get these prizes to you. So congratulations to Matthew. If you are here, go and see the folks at the back. Go and see Drain or Haley. Seamless are giving away a Fitbit Inspire 3, so you can get fit, which would be great if you didn't have steps up here. And the winner of this is Daniel Knutsford from Morpham. Seamless will be in touch to order the Fitbit and have it shipped to you. So stand by for that. CoreLogic are giving away a Sonos Roam Bluetooth speaker. And the winner of that is Patrick Ralsberg from Napier City Council. Well done, Patrick. Lenovo, who've been our hardware sponsor for this event, they've been giving away 2 VC systems. I'm not actually sure what VC means in this context. I suspect it's not a Victoria Cross, but there's 2 winners there. One of them is Matthew Dornan from Transpower, and the other is Hannah Ashby Coish from Ashburton District Council. Well done to Matty and Hannah. Ably have given away a very cool retro gaming console. There's your GS career gone. You'll become a gaming wizard in the future. And the winner of that awesome piece of technology is Sue Stone from Panpack Forests. Well done, Sue. And last but not least, Eagle, we've given away some very cool bags of swag, Geo Swag. And the winners of those two are Sue Stone from Panpack Forests. See what I mean about not being random? It is random. This is just from an audience of that many. The same name came up twice. So Sue Stone and Patrick Ralsberg. So Sue and Patrick, well done twice times. Please go and see the folks at the back of the auditorium when we finish this session. Okay, so the very last thing I have to do is just talk a little bit about the road ahead for this event itself, not necessarily the technology part, but the event. So first of all, tomorrow's sessions. We're going to have a great dinner tonight. For those of you who are joining us tomorrow for the day, we do look forward to seeing you there. We start off with the Women in Spatial Breakfast, which is starting, I think, at 7:30. So bear that in mind in terms of the level of celebration you're having tonight. We do have really great sessions tomorrow, including the breakfast. So find that balance, I guess is what I'm saying. 2023, talking about the future, we're very happy to announce that the 2023 NZEUC has been confirmed for the dates of 25th to 27th of September. And we're going back to Auckland, to the Cordis venue in Auckland, which is another amazing venue, which we'll have to try and work on getting the 3D BIM model for in the next 12 months. So we're looking forward to seeing you all there. And just one other housekeeping note is that we mentioned on Monday, or Tuesday rather, that the two sessions for tomorrow, the emergency management and the 3D one, I'm going to see Gert's paragliding, are actually in the Turanga Library across the road, not in this venue. So go and check those out. So thank you very much, everyone, for all of your time. Thank you to all of our presenters. We're hoping to see you tonight and then tomorrow. If we don't, then safe travels home, and we'll see you at the 2023 event in Auckland. Thank you.